Have you ever looked around and felt like everyone else is doing better than you? Like somehow people your age are affording vacations, new cars, and a lifestyle that just doesn't seem to match their income. It makes you wonder, are you falling behind, or is there something they're not showing? Because here's the truth, most people don't actually know where they stand financially. They're guessing, comparing, and assuming without ever seeing the real numbers. And when you finally look at those numbers, it gets shocking fast. The average person isn't building wealth the way you think. Savings are lower than expected, debt is higher than it should be, and millions of people are heading toward the future with almost nothing set aside. What looks normal on the outside is often financial stress behind the scenes. So, in this video, we're going to break that illusion. We're going to look at what the average person really earns, spends, saves, and struggles with. And once you see it clearly, you'll realize something powerful. Doing better than average is a lot easier than you think. Hello, I'm Sid, and today I want to talk about something that almost everyone thinks about, but very few people truly understand: how you actually compare to everyone else when it comes to money. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, thinking about your bank account, wondering if you're ahead or falling behind? Or maybe you're scrolling through social media, seeing people your age posting vacations, new cars, and expensive lifestyles, and you can't help but ask yourself, how are they affording all of this? Are they doing better than you, or is there something else going on behind the scenes? Because the truth is, most of us are guessing. We assume. We compare. But we rarely have real numbers to understand what normal actually looks like when it comes to money. And today, I'm going to pull back the curtain on that reality. Some of these numbers might make you feel better about where you stand, and others might honestly hit like a wake-up call. Let's start with something simple but powerful: income. The typical full-time worker earns around $52.00 per year before taxes. That's roughly $1,000 a week. Sounds decent on the surface, right? But once taxes come out, federal, state, Social Security, that number shrinks fast. For many people, that leaves around $35,000 to $40 zero take home. Suddenly, it doesn't feel like a lot anymore, especially when you start stacking monthly expenses on top of it. And that's where things start getting interesting. Because income alone doesn't tell the full story. What really matters is what people are doing with that money, and that's where the cracks begin to show. Take retirement savings, for example. The median retirement savings in America is about $65,000. Now that might sound okay at first glance, but remember, this includes people of all ages. And here's the part that should really make you pause. About 1 out of every 4 people has absolutely nothing saved for retirement. Zero. Not a single dollar. That means millions of people are planning to rely entirely on Social Security in the future. Even for those who do save, the numbers aren't exactly reassuring. By retirement age, many people have around $80,000 to $90,000 saved. And if you break that down, using standard withdrawal rules, that gives them maybe $300 per month to live on. Think about that for a second. After decades of working, that's what their savings translate into. It's not exactly the picture of financial freedom most people imagine. Now let's talk about spending, because this is where things really start to connect. The average household spends around $5,500 per month. That's about $67.00 per year. And remember, that's spending after taxes. So if you want to save anything at all, you need to be earning significantly more than that. Housing takes the biggest chunk, around $1,800 to $2,000 per month. Food comes next, then transportation, which alone eats up nearly $900 per month. Just getting from point A to point B costs people over $10,000 a year. And when you add all of this together, most people are barely breaking even, if that. Now here's where it gets a little uncomfortable. Credit card debt. The average household carries over $9,000 in credit card debt, and with interest rates sitting around 20% or more, that's nearly $2.00 per year just going toward interest, not paying off the debt, just servicing it. That's money disappearing with nothing to show for it. And what's even more interesting is how this debt is created. It's not always emergencies. A lot of it comes from everyday spending, things that felt small in the moment. Dining out, shopping, upgrades, convenience. Over time, those decisions stack up, and suddenly you're carrying a balance that quietly drains your financial progress. Now, if you really want to understand your financial position, there's one number that matters more than anything else: your net worth. What you own minus what you owe, and the median net worth for households sits around $120,000. But again, that number changes a lot depending on age. Many people under 35 have less than $15,000 in net worth. That's not failure, it's reality, but it also shows how slowly people build wealth when they're not intentional about it. And then there's savings rate. The average person saves about 6% of their income. Just 6%. When you think about long-term goals, buying a home, retirement, financial independence, that number is simply not enough. Most experts recommend saving at least 10% to 15%, and even that assumes you're consistent over decades. Now here's something that might surprise you. The average retirement age is around 61. Sounds good, right? But most people can't access full Social Security benefits until 67. That creates a gap of several years where they need to rely entirely on their own savings. And if their savings look anything like the averages we just talked about, those years can be financially stressful. And this is where everything comes together. These numbers aren't just statistics. They tell a story. A story of people earning decent money but struggling to keep it. Of people spending more than they realize. Of people saving less than they should. And of a system where normal isn't actually working very well, but here's the part most people miss. Once you understand what average looks like, it becomes surprisingly easy to do better than average. You don't need to be rich. You don't need a six-figure salary. You just need to be slightly more intentional than most people. If you save more than 6%, you're already ahead. If you avoid credit card debt, you're ahead. If you invest consistently, even small amounts, you're ahead. And over time, those small differences compound into massive results. Because the gap between average and successful isn't luck. It's behavior. It's consistency. It's awareness. Most people say they want financial security. They want freedom. They want to stop worrying about money. But their daily decisions don't align with those goals. And often, that's not because they don't care. It's because they don't know what normal actually looks like. Now you do. And once you see the reality clearly, you have a choice. You can follow the same path most people are on, or you can make small adjustments that completely change where you end up. Because these numbers might describe the average person, but they don't have to define you.